Our first speaker today is Brent Wachter. Brent is currently a U.S. Forest Service North Ops Predictive Service meteorologist out of Redding, California. Prior to becoming a U.S. Forest Service employee, he spent nearly 20 years as a National Weather Service meteorologist, serving 16 of those years as an incident meteorologist in Albuquerque, New Mexico. Brent has extensive field experience, including fire stints in most Western states and 2 tours of duty to Australia to help the Bureau of Meteorology. Brent actively teaches various fire courses, including the 90 series, and is currently an NWCG Fire Behavior Subcommittee member. Let's get the presenter role. Transition to Brent for starters.
And you should be seeing the first slide. Is that correct?
We see it.
Great. So let me just advance to the second one. So I was tasked today to talk about the fire environment poster and also revisions to the incident response pocket guide as it pertains to the fire environment. But I do want to touch on 2 other field guides, the Fire Behavior Field Reference Guide, or what we call the FBFRG, and also the NWCG Guide to Fireline Fire Assessment, which is a mouthful, but most people know that as the pocket guide. And as far as the FBFRG, there are going to be 2 revisions done this year, one during the spring, and I believe some of them have already occurred. The main spring revisions is going over some of the web links and making sure they're active. And then there are a few other critical changes that were made. And then in the fall, there will be another round of revisions done, and that's to ensure consistency with the NWCG Guide to Fireline Fire Assessment, which segues into that guide. This guide is currently in final review. It's up at the level of several committees that are looking over that guide and providing comments on it and changes. And we are hoping that that guide will get published here over the next few months, especially in time for the fall and winter teaching round of next teaching. Robert Zeal is the lead author on this guide, and I should mention that both the FBFRG and the Guide to Fireline Fire Assessment, Robert Zeal is the lead author. Of course, it's a collaborative effort where there's a lot of folks involved providing input, and both those guides are funded through the Fire Behavior Subcommittee and ultimately the Fire Environment Committee under NWCG. So just know that they're going through some revisions, and in terms of that Guide to Fireline Fire Assessment, that one there will be, I mentioned hopefully it will be up in Atom here in the next few months. So we'll move on. In terms of the poster, so the poster isn't exactly really new. It was actually published and posted on NWCG's publications website back in March of 2020 or last year. But I think it's still a reference tool that is probably more little known. And one thing to mention about that is that you can order this through the Great Basin Cache. In fact, they just published a new cost to order that poster. It's actually $12.64. I think it's a very well spent money to get the poster from the Great Basin Cache. And you need to know the NFES number, this number down in that lower left-hand column, the 001354, when you go to order that. And you can also download the PDF file and print it out if you have a plotter. That's another way to get it enlarged. So a few different ways to access the poster. The other part to this is a companion video and cheat sheet were created by the Northern Arizona University's Wildland Fire Education and Training Collaborative, or what we call WETC. They were created to better explain the poster and its use, because when we take a look at the poster, there is a lot of things going on. So that video helps break down how to use the poster in various phases. especially as it aligns with the fire environment assessment process, which I'll talk more about when we talk about the IRPG. I should also mention you can get this video in various ways. The main way is through the World of Wildland Fire, a wonderful clearinghouse that has how-to videos, not just the fire environment poster, which is the latest one that was posted there, but other types of informative series videos. I just recently reviewed the PhotoLoad series video that I think will prove very handy here in the state of California in terms of fuels assessments. So we have that companion video and cheat sheet, and I also know that WoofStar is looking to add that video to their website soon. They were looking to include some fire environment information for this round of refreshers, and so hopefully that will get uploaded here very soon, because we know that some of the RT-130s, the refresher courses are already ongoing or have already occurred. So again, many ways to access this fire environment poster. So here's a quick look at the poster. The intent of the poster, like the fire weather cloud chart, is meant to be a teaching tool at an introductory level, especially for like the 190, 290, and 390 students, but it'll also aid in refreshers and continuing education. And it really does give that context to look up, look down, and look around, which is found in the IRPG. It's been in the IRPG for several years, and it's also taught in that 131 course. We know that the fire weather cloud chart was a big hit. You'll find it posted in a lot of home unit areas, and so we would love to see this fire environment poster have the same class and use. Hopefully folks will print them out and put them in good common areas that people will continually see all these different factors. So you basically start in the center, and the big purpose is identifying the next big changes in fire behavior. And there's a lot of different factors, topography, fuels, weather, that go into changing fire behavior. And within that, there's this assessment process. Before you get that fire order to go to the fire, there's a lot of situational awareness that you can do, like boning up on the weather, fire danger. And then there's, as you're en route or heading to that assignment, there's some more situational awareness items that you can be looking for. And then when you arrive on scene, and again, looking at all these factors that are in play that are impacting fire behavior in the fire environment. So, and then lastly, in the lower section of this poster, there is common vernacular language used by fire behavior professionals that are used to describe fire behavior. And a lot of that language was used, or I think all that language was used as a pull-down menu when you describe in the ICS 209 form. And to kind of create a little bit of a baseline and what verbiage is used out there in the field. Okay, so that's the fire environment poster. Lots of good things there. Again, used as more of an introductory level teaching. So now we move on to the Incident Response Pocket Guide, or what we know as the IRPG. And we know that when it comes to guides out there in the field, the IRPG is touched by more people than any other guides out there. And so we want to make sure that we have consistency and we have the right information in that guide. And we made quite a few changes to it 2 to 3 years ago, at least the fire environment committees and the subcommittees below that submitted a bunch of changes. And now we're just kind of tidying that up a little bit. And just to go over what it took to get this done, first, the committee that is the steward of the IRPG, the Incidents Operations Subcommittee, put out a request for change. And that was between December 1st to February 1st. They received hundreds of changes. And I believe, even on a call, I thought they even mentioned it might have been over 1,000. I can't remember for sure, but I know there were hundreds of changes received. And within that, there were quite a few under the fire environment guys. And so a smaller group was put together to address just specifically the fire environment. So there's a little bit on the fire behavior side, and there's a little bit on the incident operations subcommittee side. Went through lots of negotiations, lots of changes, and a final package is now to the full committee in terms of recommendations. And I think a lot of what we put forward got accepted. And there's this little graphic here that shows the guiding principles of what the IRPG is all about. It's for all wildland fire operation personnel, anywhere from firefighter 1 all the way up to Division Soup and IC3 or Incident Commander 3. So there's a wide array of positions out there that get touched that are served by this IRPG guidance document. Okay, so what are the big changes as it concerns the fire environment? Well, first and foremost, it's developing a whole new section within the IRPG. So we'd be getting a new color. Now, we proposed white, which isn't really illustrious, but nevertheless, it would be a whole new section within the IRPG. If you recall, there's a fire risk section, there's a couple safety sections, aviation section, and then there's some other references section. And that's where the lion's share of the fire environment information is located, is other references. We had some comments of wanting to see this reference guide put into a little more all one-stop shop. And so by having this new section, we should get that. The other part to this is really hammering home this fire environment assessment process, a baseline process that folks can use to systematically assess the changing fire environment and fire behavior. And that is that first page that you can see. Again, follows along the lines of the fire environment poster. Before you get on scene, a bunch of things you can do. As you're heading to the fire, there's a bunch of things you can do. And then how does it size up in terms of safety, tactical and strategical decision making, and then documenting your assessment. That's a really key process to this, and communicating what you're seeing to the rest of the field. Not everybody can see everything that's going on in the fire environment, so it takes a collaborative effort out there on the fire line. And lastly, all the other changes, and there's several pages that go beyond this first page, which is the fire environment assessment page, that give context, that give support to that assessment process. And that's ingesting some of the latest science experiences based on sound applications. So a lot of changes. Almost every page is being changed in some way, shape, or form. And it all goes towards this fire environment assessment page. Okay, so what are the pros and cons? Well, one, the separate fire environment section will make it easier for users, such as teachers, students, fire line personnel, to look up and reference the material. There's a happy medium or summation of some of the latest science and reference guides found out there. Not everything, but I think there's a happy medium. The order of the material is consistent with the order of the assessment process. So step 1, step 2, step 3. And so it gives focus plus consistency. So we're getting everybody on the same wavelength. We wanted to reduce or get rid of little used and or regional concepts. This is supposed to be a national field guide, not a regional field guide. It also eliminates the shotgun approach to how the material was used, and it provides context to the approach. And this term was used a lot in that little subgroup negotiation. It's about upping our game, raising that level of understanding. We really wanted to increase that knowledge. And a lot of folks, they've received fire behavior training many, many years ago. This really goes to helping kind of increase that knowledge that you would normally just gain through peer and out there through experience. So I really do believe it ups our game. And as far as the cons, well, I think change is always hard, and it's striking that right balance that is key. We don't want it to be too detailed, so no one would understand it or use it. But at the same time, we don't want it watered down or oversimplified. After all, the changing fire environment is quite complex. And so we just have a couple images there, shows captures of what's going to go into that IRPG. We have critical fire weather page. We have interpret the skies and inversion breaks and what that means in terms of fire behavior. And kudos to the smoke committee that helped put that together. And then a fire danger page, which talks about the 2 fire danger systems that the U.S. uses, the Canadian and NFDRS, and also a little snippet about pocket cards. So, and that's just one of many. There's many more changes out there. So, looking at a bigger picture here, and so what's the purpose for all these changes and new material? And we're talking the FBFRG and all the other different big guides that I had in the first slide. Well, one, it's to establish a formalized assessment process for the fire environment. It aids in that anticipation of fire behavior changes. It provides that baseline consistency and understanding. And I would suspect there's going to be well-seasoned people out there, like hotshot supervisors, that will likely add to this process, kind of up the game even further, and tailor it to individual needs. The other part to this is it will give additional context to look up, look down, look around, which is taught in that S131. Second, it provides wonderful classroom reference. For example, the 90 series are currently being revised. We would know that 190 is already revised and posted. We have 290 and 390, and ultimately 490 that will be revised. And these guides will be front and center in that teaching in future courses. Of course, we know that I think parts of these guides will be used in RT130 refresher courses, and they'll also be very valuable aids in distance learning. And lastly, the third part to this is that continuing education, which is a hot topic right now amongst the Fire Management Board. We hope that the guides will be used to be quizzed on either at the fire line level or back at home or at unit or base. So lots of big things here. And ultimately it goes to anticipating those big fire environment changes that eat our lunch, those types of changes that eat our lunch and alter safety, tactics, and strategy in terms of decision making. It's just huge. So quick summary, publications will be more consistent. The publications give more focus, adds additional science. The publications are used for teaching. We're talking continuing ed, distance learning, and the 90 series curriculum. And these publications will support that established fire environment assessment process. And with that, I'll leave you with this diagram. It's the 4 main guides that kind of revolve around this, that is going to be providing information about this fire environment assessment process. They'll be all consistent. And then there'll be other guides out there and apps that'll be used to fill in, to fully encapsulate the different factors that go into assessing the fire environment. And with that, that's the end of my presentation.
Thank you, Brent.